The galaxy had known peace for centuries, ruled by an ancient council of powerful alien species. This council had maintained order across the stars, ensuring that no one, not even the most powerful of species, could disrupt the delicate balance they had created. They were feared, respected, and all-powerful. But one thing they did not expect was the arrival of a human diplomat, an envoy sent by Earth. Humans had long been considered insignificant in the eyes of the Council, too primitive and chaotic to be of any real threat. But now, Earth had sent Alex, a young but highly skilled diplomat, to present humanity's case for peace and cooperation. Alex's ship arrived in the Council's capital, a towering structure that floated among the stars like a symbol of power. As he walked down the grand hall towards the Council chambers, the silence in the air was thick, almost suffocating. Every step felt like a weight pressing down on him. He knew the Council had always viewed humanity as a threat, as a species that might one day rise up and challenge their power. The Council had never dealt with humans directly, and that was precisely why Alex had been chosen. His mission was simple: convince the Council that humanity wanted peace, that they had evolved beyond their old ways of war and conflict. The Council chamber was vast, filled with alien species of every shape and form. Their eyes, glowing with ancient knowledge, watched Alex with silent intensity. There were beings that looked like living shadows, others that shimmered like liquid, and still more whose forms seemed to defy all logic. Alex couldn't help but feel small in their presence, but he had trained for this moment his entire life. He had to keep his composure. As he stepped forward, the voices of the Council grew quiet, and the leader, a being of translucent blue energy, raised a hand. It was time for the human diplomat to speak. Alex took a deep breath and began. "My name is Alex, and I come as a representative of humanity. We seek peace with the galaxy, and we wish to build a future where all species can live in harmony, without fear of war or destruction." The words were carefully chosen, each one meant to inspire hope. But as soon as Alex finished speaking, there was a long pause. The Council didn't respond immediately. Instead, they exchanged looks, their minds working faster than any human could follow. Alex felt a growing unease. He had known this might not be easy, but he hadn't expected silence this thick. Finally, the leader spoke, their voice like the sound of wind through chimes. "Humanity, peace, you have not proven yourselves worthy of such an offer. Your history is one of violence and conflict. How can you, a species so young, claim to desire peace when your past is full of wars and destruction?" Alex's heart sank, but he didn't let his face show it. He had anticipated some resistance. He had studied the Council's long history, understood their fears, and knew they would be cautious. But he couldn't give up now. He continued, speaking with a calm but firm voice. "We have learned from our past. We understand the mistakes we have made, and we are working to change. Humanity's greatest strength is our ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow. We know we cannot erase our past, but we can shape our future." For a moment, the Council remained silent again. Alex could almost hear their minds turning. Then the voice of another Council member, a tall figure whose skin seemed to be made of solid metal, broke through the silence. "Your words are persuasive, but we have seen many species come to us with promises of peace, only to break them when it serves their needs. What makes you think humanity is different?" Alex paused. This was the moment. He had to make them believe. He took a step forward, his voice steady as he addressed them. "We do not seek power or control. We are not here to conquer or enslave. We ask for the chance to prove ourselves. We want to work together, to share knowledge, and to ensure that our future is one of mutual respect." But even as Alex spoke, he saw it: doubt. The Council members were not convinced. Their eyes remained cold, skeptical. The leader of the Council, the being of translucent blue energy, raised a hand once more, signaling the end of the discussion. "We will deliberate. You will be given our answer soon." Alex's heart raced as he bowed slightly and left the chamber. The moment he stepped into the hall, the weight of failure settled on him. He had done everything he could, but it wasn't enough. The council was still unconvinced. He couldn't help but feel that the outcome of this meeting was already decided, and it wasn't in humanity's favor. Days passed in tense silence. Alex was kept under strict observation, not allowed to leave the council's vast citadel. He spent his time pacing in his room, thinking, planning, and hoping for some miracle. He had to believe that humanity's chance for peace hadn't ended just because of a few doubts. Then, one day, without warning, a new message arrived. The council had reached a decision. Alex was summoned back to the chamber. This time, the atmosphere was different. There was an odd tension in the air, something Alex couldn't quite place. The council members sat in their seats, their expressions unreadable. The leader raised a hand again. But this time, there was no deliberation, no questions, only cold, calculating words. "Humanity is not ready for peace. You have proven nothing to us. We have decided that you pose a threat to the galaxy." Alex's eyes widened. This was not the response he had expected. He had hoped for compromise, for dialogue. But instead, he was met with something far darker. The council's voice grew colder. "You will be removed." Before Alex could respond, he was surrounded by guards, their weapons drawn. They moved quickly, with deadly precision, as if they had already made up their minds about what needed to be done. The diplomat's heart raced as they dragged him from the chamber. He had failed. He had failed humanity. His dream of peace was slipping away, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. But as they led him through the cold, dark corridors of the council's citadel, Alex's mind began to race. He had always known that humanity's path to peace would not be easy. He had always known there would be obstacles. But something told him that this wasn't the end. The council might have thought that killing a human diplomat would solve their problems. They believed that silencing one man would end humanity's threat once and for all. But Alex knew better. He knew that humanity, for all its flaws and mistakes, was not so easily crushed. And in that moment, as the doors to his prison cell closed behind him, Alex made a vow. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Alex sat alone in the cold, dark cell, the silence around him pressing in like a heavy weight. The harsh lights overhead flickered occasionally, casting long shadows across the stone-like walls. His mind was spinning, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. One moment, he was standing before the most powerful beings in the galaxy, speaking of peace and cooperation. The next, he was thrown into a cell, sentenced to death. The council had spoken with cold certainty, and Alex knew there was no way to change their minds. Humanity's plea for peace had been rejected, and with it, his life was now at risk. But even as he sat there, the fear and panic that should have overwhelmed him didn't come. Instead, a strange calmness settled over him. He had always known that the path to peace would not be easy, that the council's response was unlikely to be kind. But there was something deeper within him, something that Alex couldn't fully explain, that told him this wasn't the end of the road. Not yet. The minutes turned into hours, and the hours into a long, torturous night. Alex knew the council would not waste time. The execution would come swiftly, probably tomorrow, as soon as they decided on the best way to make an example of him. The harsh reality of his situation set in, but it wasn't fear that gripped him. It was something else, something nagging at the back of his mind. The council had underestimated humanity. They had not understood what Alex had tried to convey, that humanity was capable of much more than they had assumed. At that thought, Alex's heart skipped a beat. He remembered his last words to the council. He had spoken about the forgotten ones, humanity's hidden, ancient past. He had spoken of them without fully understanding what they truly were. The council had dismissed him as a naive diplomat, but Alex knew something deeper. He had felt it, an unspoken truth in the council's eyes, a fear that had lingered when they ordered his execution. They fear humanity not for its present, but for something they had long forgotten, something buried deep in human history. The Forgotten Ones. They were real, and perhaps they were humanity's last hope. As the hours dragged on, Alex's mind raced through everything he knew about these Forgotten Ones. They were a myth, a whispered legend, an ancient faction of humanity that had been exiled from Earth long before the rise of the modern human civilization. According to the stories, they were a group of humans who had become far too powerful, too dangerous for the Council's liking. The Council had decided to wipe them out before they could pose a threat to the galaxy. But the truth was different. These humans had been forced into hiding, their existence erased from history. What if they were still out there, somewhere in the galaxy? What if Alex's warning had been more than just words? What if the killing of a human diplomat had triggered something deep inside the Forgotten Ones, something that would wake them from their long sleep? Alex's thoughts were interrupted when the door to his cell opened with a loud creak. Two guards, silent and unmoving, stood in the doorway. Without a word, they motioned for him to follow. The time had come. They led him down a series of cold, sterile hallways, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Alex's heart beat faster with each step, but he didn't resist. There was no point in struggling. Whatever was going to happen, he had to face it now. Finally, they stopped in front of a large, circular chamber. It was unlike any room Alex had seen before. The walls were covered in intricate alien symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint, eerie light. At the center of the room stood a high platform, surrounded by an eerie blue glow. Alex's stomach turned as he realized where he was. This was the execution chamber. The guards motioned for Alex to step onto the platform. As he did, he noticed something strange. The room felt off. The air was thick with energy, a strange, almost oppressive feeling that he couldn't quite place. It felt like a storm was brewing, but no one else seemed to notice. The council members were seated in a semicircle around the platform, their expressions impassive. The leader, the being of translucent blue energy, spoke first. "Humanity has failed," the leader said, their voice cold and unfeeling. "You have shown us nothing but weakness and fear. Your species is not worthy of our trust. You are a threat to the galaxy, and as such, you will be removed." Alex stood tall, despite the sinking feeling in his gut. He could sense the tension in the air, the energy building around him. Something wasn't right, but he couldn't tell what. Before the leader could give the signal for execution, there was a sudden, unexpected noise, a low rumble, almost like the sound of distant thunder. The council members looked around, puzzled. Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. The air felt charged, as though something massive and powerful was stirring. Without warning, the chamber lights flickered, and the walls seemed to ripple with energy. The blue symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, pulsing in time with Alex's racing heartbeat. The guards around him tensed, their weapons at the ready. The council members exchanged looks of confusion and growing concern. Then, the rumbling grew louder, shaking the very foundation of the citadel. Alex's eyes widened as he felt something stir deep inside him, an ancient, primal force that seemed to come from the depths of humanity's past. It wasn't just the Forgotten Ones. It was something even older, something that had been buried, sealed away by the Council long ago. The ground beneath their feet began to shake violently, and a strange, unfamiliar voice echoed through the chamber, its tone both soothing and terrifying. "Humanity is not to be destroyed. Not yet." The council members froze, their faces paling. The voice seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Alex could feel it vibrating through his very bones, a voice that resonated with something deep inside him. The leader of the council stood, alarmed. "What is this?" they demanded. "Who dares to interrupt our judgment?" But the voice ignored them. "The time of reckoning is upon you," it intoned, the words sending a chill down Alex's spine. "The Forgotten Ones are waking, and they will reclaim what was stolen." The energy in the room shifted. and Alex felt a strange, overwhelming sense of power. The council members exchanged frantic whispers. The ground trembled again, and suddenly, the chamber door burst open. Figures emerged from the shadows, humans, but not like any humans Alex had ever seen. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and their presence was suffused with an ancient, terrifying power. Alex's heart raced as he recognized them for what they were, the Forgotten Ones, and they were here, to save him, or to destroy the council. The room went silent. The fate of humanity and the galaxy hung in the balance. The air in the chamber grew heavier, almost suffocating as the Forgotten Ones stepped forward. Their presence was commanding, and even the powerful council, known for their ancient strength, seemed to waver in the face of this unexpected force. Alex could feel the power in the room intensify. The Forgotten Ones weren't just human. They were something more, something older and far more dangerous than anything the council had encountered. Their eyes, glowing with a strange energy, locked onto Alex, and he felt a sudden sense of recognition, as if their presence awakened something deep inside him. The council members stood frozen, unable to speak, their once imposing figures now dwarfed by the power radiating from the Forgotten Ones. Alex's breath caught in his throat. This was no mere rescue. This was an invasion led by humanity's own forgotten past, a past the council had tried to erase, but which had now come back with a vengeance. The leader of the council, still regaining their composure, took a cautious step forward. "Who are you?" the leader demanded, their voice wavering just slightly. "You are not of this time. You were cast out centuries ago. You should not exist." A figure stepped forward from the Forgotten Ones, a tall, imposing man with eyes like burning embers. He raised a hand, silencing the leader's protests. "We are the Forgotten Ones," he said, his voice resonating with an ancient power that seemed to echo through the chamber. "We are the humans who were exiled, erased from history, but we are not gone, and we have not forgotten." The council members exchanged nervous glances, their once unshakable confidence now faltering. Alex watched the scene unfold, a mix of awe and confusion washing over him. He had known the Forgotten Ones were real, but seeing them in person, their power so palpable, was something else entirely. They were humans, but not like him, not like any human he had ever met. There was something timeless about them, something that transcended the very nature of humanity itself. The Forgotten One who spoke continued, his voice low and filled with anger. "You thought you could control us. You thought you could erase our existence, but you failed. And now you will pay for that mistake." Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. He understood now. The council had underestimated humanity, not just the present-day humans, but the ancient powerful humans that had been hidden away. The Forgotten Ones were not just a threat to the council. They were a threat to the galaxy itself. They had the power to destroy everything the council had worked for, to undo centuries of control and power. "Alex," the Forgotten One said, turning his gaze toward him, "you have done what you could, but now it is our turn. You may not fully understand yet, but your part in this is far from over." Alex's mind raced. He had been caught up in the whirlwind of politics and diplomacy, but now he was thrust into something far greater, something that involved not just humanity, but the very fabric of the galaxy itself. The Forgotten Ones were here to reclaim what had been taken from them, and they weren't interested in peace. They were interested in power, in revenge, and in reshaping the galaxy in their image. The council, now completely on edge, began to stir. "You cannot do this," the leader of the council said, their voice shaky. "The galaxy will never allow it. The other species will not stand for your rebellion." The Forgotten One who had spoken earlier smiled, a cold, emotionless grin. "We do not need the galaxy's approval. We will take what is ours, with or without their consent." He turned toward Alex again. "We do not need the council, but we need you." Alex's mind whirled. What did they need from him? He had been sent here as a diplomat, to seek peace, but now he was caught in the middle of something far darker and more complicated. The Forgotten Ones weren't just here to change the Council's decision. They were here to take control, to reshape the galaxy according to their vision. And Alex, somehow, was central to their plan. Before Alex could respond, the chamber's massive doors burst open, and a group of council guards stormed in, weapons raised. They had come to stop the Forgotten Ones, but they were no match for the ancient humans. A fierce battle erupted, energy blasts lighting up the room as the Forgotten Ones effortlessly dispatched the guards. The council members, now visibly frightened, backed away, their once great power crumbling in the face of the Forgotten Ones' overwhelming strength. Amid the chaos, Alex found himself frozen in place, unsure of what to do. His diplomatic mission had failed, but now he was part of something much bigger. The Forgotten Ones were not here to negotiate. They were here to take what they believed was theirs, and they were willing to burn everything to the ground to do it. The leader of the council tried one last desperate plea. "You don't have to do this. We can still negotiate. We can still." But the Forgotten One, with the ember-like eyes, interrupted with a voice full of authority. "There is no negotiation. There is only reclamation." He looked at Alex again, a glint of something dangerous in his eyes. "We will not ask for permission. This is the beginning of the end for the Council, and the beginning of a new era for humanity." Alex's heart pounded in his chest. His mission had changed in an instant. He was no longer a simple diplomat. He was caught in the middle of a power struggle between the ancient forces of humanity and the Council, and the outcome of this conflict would reshape everything he had believed about peace and cooperation. The Forgotten Ones were not interested in diplomacy. They were interested in dominance. As the battle raged around him, Alex realized he had only one choice: to survive, and to figure out what his role was in this new war. The Forgotten Ones weren't just looking for revenge. They were looking to rise, to conquer, to remake the galaxy in their own image. And if Alex wanted to survive, he would need to decide which side he was truly on. The leader of the council, now visibly panicked, turned toward Alex. "You don't have to stand with them. You're human. You can help us stop this." But Alex's gaze was fixed on the Forgotten Ones. He didn't know if he could trust them, but one thing was clear: humanity was not going to back down, and he wasn't sure which side was truly in the right anymore. The Forgotten Ones weren't just a threat to the Council. They were a threat to everything. And Alex wasn't sure whether he was ready to be a part of their dark vision for the future, or whether he would fight against them to stop the galaxy from descending into chaos. But one thing was certain: the fight for humanity's future had just begun. The chaos in the chamber swirled around Alex like a storm, blasts of energy lighting up the room, the harsh sounds of combat filling the air, and the Council's guards falling one by one at the hands of the Forgotten Ones. The leader of the Council had retreated to the far side of the room, muttering something about evacuation, but no one was listening anymore. The Council's once feared grip on the galaxy was slipping, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Alex stood frozen in place, caught between the past and the present. The Forgotten Ones, the humans exiled long ago, were more powerful than anything he could have imagined. Their presence was suffused with an ancient energy, a force that seemed to transcend time and space. He could feel it in his bones. Their power was raw, untamed, and it was like nothing humanity had ever wielded before. But it wasn't just power that made them dangerous. It was their intent. They weren't here to negotiate peace. They weren't here to talk. They had come to take control, to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs, and Alex wasn't sure if he could stop them, even if he wanted to. As the last of the Council's guards fell to the ground, the Forgotten Ones stopped, their heads turning to Alex in unison. The man with ember-like eyes, their apparent leader, stepped forward, his presence commanding the attention of the room. "Alex," he said, his voice calm but firm, "you see now. The Council was never meant to rule. They were not created to maintain order. They were created to suppress. Humanity does not need their guidance. Humanity needs freedom, power, and the chance to shape its own future. We are the reckoning, and you will be the one to decide if we rise, or if we are forced to burn it all down. Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the weight of their words, the pressure of their expectations. They were right about one thing. Humanity had been controlled for too long. The Council had kept them in check, denying them the chance to grow, to evolve beyond the constraints of their primitive history. But this was something else. This was war. This was not a fight for peace. It was a fight for domination. He looked at the fallen council members, their once imposing figures now just shadows of their former selves. The arrogance, the superiority they had once exuded was gone, replaced by fear and desperation. They had underestimated the Forgotten Ones. But what if the Forgotten Ones weren't just a threat to the Council? What if they were a threat to the galaxy itself? We were cast aside. The leader of the Forgotten Ones continued, his voice darkening. But we never disappeared. We've waited. And now, we will take what is ours. Alex swallowed hard, the weight of their words settling heavily on his shoulders. Was he going to stand with them? Was he going to join the Forgotten Ones in their war to reclaim what they believed was theirs? Or was he going to try to stop them, to fight for the future of a galaxy it had no idea what it was about to face? The Forgotten One's eyes narrowed, as if reading Alex's thoughts. You will join us, Alex, whether you want to or not. Humanity's future will be written by our hands, not the Council's. Alex's mind raced. The Forgotten Ones were powerful, their wrath undeniable, but the consequences of their rise were something he wasn't sure humanity could survive. If they succeeded, they would overthrow the Council, but they would also upend everything, every peace, every alliance, every fragile hope the galaxy had ever known. But there was something else inside Alex, something deep down he couldn't ignore. The same fire that burned in the Forgotten One's eyes, the same passion that drove them to reclaim their lost place in the galaxy. It was the same fire that had driven him to become a diplomat, to fight for peace, to fight for humanity's place in the stars. In that moment, he realized the truth. The Council had been right about one thing. Humanity wasn't ready for peace, not in the way they had imagined. But maybe, just maybe, they could still create a new future. A future where they could rise without succumbing to the same power struggles, the same corruption that had led the Council to their downfall. You want freedom, but not at the cost of everything else, Alex said, his voice steady but firm. The Council may have ruled with fear, but that doesn't mean we should do the same. If you're going to win, it won't be with destruction. It will be with understanding, with change. The Forgotten One with ember eyes regarded him for a long moment, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and dangerous. You are naive, Alex. The galaxy doesn't want understanding. It wants power. We can give it to them. Alex shook his head, his resolve hardening. No, what humanity needs is something different. What the galaxy needs is something different. Not more wars. Not more bloodshed. There's another way, and I will find it, whether you like it or not. The ember-eyed leader's gaze hardened, his expression cold and unforgiving. You are either with us, or you are against us. The room was silent. The Forgotten Ones stood still, their eyes fixed on Alex, waiting for his answer. He knew what they wanted. They wanted him to join them, to lead humanity's rise to power. But Alex wasn't sure that was the future he wanted. The Forgotten Ones were humans, yes, but they were not the future humanity needed. They were a product of a past that had been abandoned for a reason. Alex's mind was made up. He had a choice to make, and this time, it wasn't about diplomacy or peace talks. This time, it was about survival. The galaxy could not afford another war. The Forgotten Ones couldn't be allowed to reignite the flames of destruction that would consume everything. He wasn't going to let that happen. I won't join you, Alex said, his voice firm. The ember-eyed leader's expression didn't change. So be it. You will learn, Alex. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and sometimes there is no room for peace, only power. Before Alex could respond, the Forgotten Ones began to move. Their leader turned, signaling for them to prepare. The battle was far from over, and now Alex was in the middle of something much larger than he could have ever imagined. The Forgotten Ones might have underestimated humanity, but they hadn't underestimated him. There was a war ahead, but Alex wasn't about to let it be fought on their terms. He would fight for humanity's future, whatever that future might look like. The battle for the galaxy's soul had only just begun. The chaos in the chamber intensified as the Forgotten Ones clashed with the Resistance. Alex, though overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of the battle, found himself emboldened by the sight of the Resistance fighters. They fought with the same fervor he had seen in himself when he first set out as a diplomat, an unwavering belief in something greater than just survival. This wasn't a fight for power, it was a fight for the future. The Forgotten Ones, powerful as they were caught off guard by the unity of the Resistance. They had expected an easy victory, but they hadn't accounted for the tenacity and resilience of those who had been hidden away for so long. Every strike, every burst of energy sent in the Forgotten One's direction was met with fierce determination. It wasn't just about the fight. It was about proving something to themselves and to the galaxy, that they wouldn't back down, no matter how overwhelming the odds seemed. General Callahan, leading the charge, moved with precision and experience. His voice rang out above the chaos, directing the Resistance with calm authority. Push them back. Don't let them gain ground. This is our chance. Alex joined the fray, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never imagined he would be in the middle of something like this. The Forgotten Ones were relentless, but so was he. He had no special powers, no ancient abilities, but he had something the Forgotten Ones didn't: the will to fight for something greater than himself. He had seen what the Council's regime had done, and he had seen what the Forgotten Ones were willing to destroy to reshape the galaxy. This wasn't about winning for the sake of power, it was about winning for the sake of the future. He moved through the chaos, ducking blasts of energy, using the cover of fallen debris to navigate the battlefield. He fought with the precision and resolve that had always been at the core of his work as a diplomat, but now he was fighting for his life and for humanity's future. As the Resistance pushed forward, Alex caught sight of the ember-eyed leader once more. He was standing near the edge of the chamber, his eyes burning with fury as he observed the battle unfold. The leader's face twisted with disdain, but there was something else in his expression too, a hint of uncertainty, as though he had not anticipated being challenged on such a scale. The leader raised his hand, and suddenly the energy in the room shifted. A wave of dark power surged outward, knocking several Resistance fighters to the ground, their weapons skittering away. Alex's heart raced as the Forgotten One's leader unleashed a burst of energy that cracked the floor beneath them. The chamber trembled violently, as if the very structure of the building was at risk of collapsing. "Enough!" the ember-eyed leader shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You cannot win. Humanity will fall, just as it was meant to." Alex felt the weight of the leader's words, but he wasn't about to back down. This fight wasn't about winning or losing for one side. It was about proving that humanity had the strength to define its own future, and he wasn't going to let that slip away. "Don't listen to him." General Callahan's voice rang out again, rallying his troops. "They're just trying to break us. Hold your ground." As the Forgotten Ones charged, the Resistance responded in kind, their weapons flashing in the dim, flickering lights of the chamber. Alex, feeling a rush of adrenaline, pushed forward, dodging another blast from the leader. He spotted an opening, a narrow gap between two columns of energy blasts, and he made a break for it, running toward the ember-eyed leader. The leader saw him coming, but it was too late. Alex tackled him just as the leader raised his hand to strike, throwing him off balance. The two tumbled across the floor, crashing into a pile of rubble. Alex scrambled to his feet, his body aching from the impact. He was exhausted, bruised and bloodied, but he wasn't finished yet. This was the moment. The ember-eyed leader sneered as he stood up, his eyes blazing with fury. "You think you can stop me? You think you can stop this?" Alex stood tall, his gaze unwavering. "I don't need to stop you. I just need to make sure you understand something. Humanity is not a thing to be controlled, not by you, not by anyone." The leader's eyes narrowed dangerously, but before he could respond, General Callahan and several resistance fighters appeared, charging forward to join Alex. They had the leader surrounded now, and the tide of the battle was clearly turning. The Forgotten Ones, once confident in their power, were beginning to falter. Their numbers were thinning, and the resistance, though smaller in number, had the advantage of unity and a purpose that transcended mere strength. The ember-eyed leader looked at Alex one last time, his expression a mix of rage and realization. "You think this is over?" He spat. "You are nothing. You've won a battle, but the war will never be over. We will return." Alex shook his head, stepping forward. "No, this ends now. Humanity's future is not yours to decide." Before the leader could respond, a blinding flash of light erupted from the far side of the room. It was the Resistance's final push, a coordinated strike, a combined force of humanity's will. The Forgotten Ones were overwhelmed, and with one final cry, the ember-eyed leader fell to the ground, his power dissipating with his fall. The chamber fell silent. Alex stood over the fallen leader, his breath heavy, his body aching from the battle. The Forgotten Ones had been defeated for now. The resistance fighters, though exhausted, exchanged wary but triumphant glances. They had done it. They had driven back the Forgotten Ones and secured a victory for humanity. But Alex knew this was just the beginning. The war wasn't over. There would be more battles, more challenges ahead. The Forgotten Ones weren't easily defeated, and the Council, though weakened, still held power. As General Callahan approached, Alex looked around the chamber, his mind racing. The battle had been won, but the galaxy was far from secure. There would be more to do, more to fight for. "You did it, Alex," Callahan said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We all did, but this fight is far from over. The galaxy still needs us." Alex nodded, his gaze hardening. "I know, but we've proven something today. Humanity is stronger than any one faction. We will rise, and we will fight, not for power, but for the future." The battle for the galaxy was far from over, but now, at least, there was hope. The Resistance had proven that unity could overcome even the darkest of forces, and as Alex stood there, looking at the fallen leader, he knew that the future of humanity, his future, was in his hands, and he was ready to fight for it.